Christians need to be intolerant. The world is a mess, and it's Christians' fault. Specifically, Christian men. Every single great uprising begins with men, and every single downfall begins with men. So in order to reverse things in any capacity, we need to take action ourselves. Part of this is being, quote-unquote, intolerant. Now, the reason why I annotate Christian is because every single thing that they do is targeted towards Christians. If you believe Christianity is true, which that's not the subject of this video, but I have multiple videos on why I'm a Christian, why I believe Jesus rose, why I believe in God, etc. So from that lens, I understand that every single evil thing is really of Satan, and every good thing is of God, right? And since I believe Christianity is the one true religion, this is really a battle between Christian and non-Christian. Now, that doesn't mean that all non-Christians are necessarily quote-unquote bad from our perspective, human perspective, but at the end of the day, Christianity is the one true religion. Everything that takes people away from Christianity is against us. So, and against the one objective truth that we can all cling to. So, I'm going to define to you what tolerance means in society. This is what tolerance means, okay? You watch dudes kiss, you watch kids get indoctrinated with a bunch of crap, you watch all this terrible stuff happen, you watch babies die, terrible stuff, right? And you're supposed to say nothing. You're supposed to sit there and be like, oh, well, that's okay. Yeah, they can do that, you know. I don't want to offend anyone. And that's really what it is. Everyone, men specifically, and of course I annotate Christian men, well, I don't want to offend anyone. Sorry, guys. No, sorry, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to stand here and stay quiet and watch all these babies die. You know, that's how it is. And this is highly detrimental to society. And this all started not too long ago. 1950s, I mean, imagine talking about abortion. I mean, that was like dystopian. Abortion? What do you mean? Killing a baby? You don't kill babies. You know, all this liberalism, like, oh, woman, you know, let's go to college, let's get a job. I mean, what do you mean? You should be home raising kids, you know, because that's the best thing you could have, you know, instead of, you know, being 80 and frail and having this piece of paper like, well, I did psychology. I mean, no one cares. No one gives a damn. Oh, you're 80 and have a psychology degree. Cool. No one cares. It's not even like you can use it anymore. Your brain is leaving you. But switch that psychology degree with grandkids, her own kids. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So it's like, well, what do you mean girls should go to college? Every single girl should go to college? No, you know, it's better to stay home and whatnot. But things have changed now because that's now intolerance. Okay, it's now intolerant to say, well, girls should stay home and cook, clean, all this other stuff, right? Intolerance. We're saying, or even saying, you know, I believe in God, and I believe that certain things are commanded by God, therefore something like, you know, because the things YouTube doesn't like when I say things like this, but so things like, you know, two dudes doing stuff, that's wrong. And that's now intolerant too. All of this stuff that was common sense not too long ago is now intolerance. And you can either look at it like, well, is this nefarious or is this good? I think those are the only two options. I don't think there's a neutral considering the amount of controversy these things have garnered. And what I'll say is simply, look at how often people are depressed. Look how often people are doing stuff to make it so they won't wake up the next morning. That's a funny way of putting it. Or look at just polls about how unhappy people are. You see, the more liberal, and this more than just, you know, women's rights and all this stuff, it's abortion, although I guess that's part of it, you know, two dudes being together, two girls being together. As this went up, as all the stuff went up, this is overall society's happiness. That's how it is. And look at any graph. As soon as this stuff started going up, happiness went down. And the reason why is because humans are not supposed to live like this. And truthfully, for all you Christians, this quote-unquote tolerance is not biblical, because I see a lot of Christians. Even, there's two groups of Christians I'm referring to. There's the Christians that know it's right. They have the same opinions as me, but they don't want to say, because like, well, I don't want to cause trouble, right? And then there's the people that are like, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe that this is wrong. But they say verbally it's not wrong compared to the other group that's just withhold speaking. And truthfully, both of these views are completely wrong. For the one who doesn't speak up, I mean, think about Jesus and what he did. He literally went to the Pharisees. Woe to the Pharisees. He flipped tables. And he got mad. And he did stuff that's quote-unquote violent and intolerant. Didn't he? In fact, this whole entire ministry you could call intolerant, couldn't you? He went to the... he basically... proverbially spat on the Pharisees, said everything they're doing is wrong, follow me, I'm the Son of Man. I mean, that's causing quite the stir. That's not being tolerant, that's not keeping the peace, is it? Jesus criticized a lot of people. And as for the ones who say, like, well, Christians, Christians can, like, two Christians being together, two Christian men being together and doing stuff, that's okay. I mean, read the Bible for like 5 minutes. Read the Bible for 5 minutes, see what it says about that. Well, the Greek translation... Don't talk about that, bro. The Greek translation says basically the same thing. You're not going to squirm out of that. Don't pull the Muslim and say, oh, well, alhamdulillah, the original translation is different. It doesn't work. Does not work, okay? And the reason why you're quote-unquote tolerant is because... I think the Bible talks about this. Your human instincts, your human flesh, your human desires get exploited. And I'll explain how this works. I've talked about this in my videos about propaganda, but when us humans were evolved to think with the group, because identifying with the group, being with the group was the best way to survive. And I would say still is, right? It's much easier to survive when you're a group of 10 rather than one person. So, over time, we're like, well, our brains naturally started understanding this. We're like, well, we should do things. Like, the brain's like, okay, what we should do is, or what I should do, because it's your own brain. What I should do is try to fit in with these people, because if I fit in with these people, I have a better chance of surviving. And that's your natural mechanism. Everyone has that mechanism. Unless you're, like, psychopathic or something. Or even then, I mean, even if you're psychopathic, you're still going to have the mechanism. You're just not going to care about other people's feelings. But anyways... You see them talking about something, your natural instinct is just okay, let's not cause a stir, because you don't want to get kicked out of the group. Because getting kicked out of the group for a very long time, meant like, well, getting food, surviving, all this stuff's going to be significantly harder. So what they've done is they've exploited this with group mass thinking, group psychology. What they've done is they've infected the average person with a bunch of crap. Then all the average normies, and look at how normies talk. You see this in action. A bunch of normies talking with each other, right? And they talk about things like, well, abortion's good and all this other crap, right? And then you listen to that, and you don't want to go against the grain because it's like, well, I don't want to get kicked out of the group. That's your natural human instinct. You need to fight against that. And truthfully, this is funny. I don't necessarily think, I know I said the average person, I would say the average message. Right? Because what I think it is I think the average person agrees with me on most things when it comes to abortion, all this other stuff. But the truth is that because these people have controlled the media, they control, they're the loudest. They're the loudest group of people. They're very, very loud. So imagine like 2 people screaming at the top of their lungs and like 5 people just talking normally. Who's going to be louder? The 2 people screaming. But the majority doesn't agree with the 2 people screaming, right? That's how it is. So it's funny, you always have these, and I see this all the time. You have people, a group of people sitting, and I've seen this in person, I've seen this on videos. Like, one person's like, I don't like everything about him. But I think Donald Trump was not that bad of a president. They put it like that, so it's like, well, I don't want to offend anyone. And someone else is like, yeah, I agree. And the other person's like, yeah, I agree too. Another person's like, yeah, I agree too. So the whole entire table agrees, but the first guy was like, well, let me not offend anyone by saying this. That's how they want you to think. They want you to think that liking Donald Trump, liking anyone who go against the grain, liking anything, like not liking abortion, not liking dudes doing stuff, like all this other stuff, right? This is, well, that's wrong. You're going to get called out as soon as you say it. But the truth is, that's not even the case. Now, you may get called out by those people screaming, But the truth is, the silent majority will actually agree with you. So that's a little lesson. That's a little slice of the world for you. Okay? Human instincts are getting exploited every single day. Everything's propaganda. Always understand that. Because, as has been revealed explicitly, I mean, to me this was obvious, but as revealed explicitly more recently, the government has direct influence on social media platforms. They censor stories and they push stories up. Now, these people don't give a damn about you. They want you as a slave. They want to control you. Given that, you should be very cautious about what you believe and why you believe it. Now, the way this circles back into tolerance is understanding that the world is filled with propaganda. You yourself have to take the mantle. This is a solution to the whole entire, tolerance problem among Christians. We must build ourselves up. Okay? Now, think about an interrogation. Okay? In this interrogation, there's a person and there's the interrogator, right? This is situation number one. This person is a scrawny little nerd. It doesn't work out, doesn't eat well, very poor mindset, all this other stuff. And he needs to keep his mouth shut in order for his family not to die. Right? And now this guy's getting interrogated. He's getting whipped, whatever. That's situation number one. He can't spill the beans or his family dies. The right thing to do is not to spill the beans. Then the second situation, you take the same situation, but you switch out the guy being interrogated with someone who's, good mindset, strong mental framework, good shape, all this other stuff, all the good attributes that one could control. You get these two situations. Who's going to spill the beans? Who's going to fold to who's going to be able to take more suffering? Who's going to be able to be stronger and not let out what he shouldn't let out? Obviously, the guy in situation number two. So that's proving my point right there, because I see a lot of, and this goes to, bridge theology, I believe. God tells us to provide, protect, be respectable, be honest, all this other stuff. And people just take it at face value and don't understand the extrapolation from that, right? Because if to do all those things, well, you should have an ironclad mindset. You should be fit. You should be all these different things, shouldn't you? Because that facilitates everything the Bible tells you to do. So what I see a lot of Christians not understanding is that, yes, the explicit thing is to be respectful, be nice, all this other stuff, right? But there's also stuff that you have to extrapolate. Like maybe the explicit words you're given is that, well, love your neighbor as thy yourself. And I agree with that. But also realize that someone like Jesus was flipping tables when people are doing things that were wrong. You have to stand for what's right. You have to stand for what's wrong. It's much harder to stand for what's right if you aren't, you yourself, built up. Think about it like the parable, the guy who built his house on the sand, the guy who built his house on the rock. If you're a Christian and you're trying to, do good for society and you're trying to, change the world in a sense, right? As you should, trying to make disciples, all of those stuff. If you aren't yourself taking care of yourself by working out, working on your mindset, making money. I know like, oh, greedy money, you don't like money. But the truth is, money is a resource, okay? The Bible calls you to provide. Don't worship money. Don't be greedy, okay? But you need to make some money, okay? If you actually want to provide for others, you need to make money. Or, you work on a farm and you get your food and whatever. But for the average person, you got to make money, right? So trying to change the world, do all this other stuff while you're fat, you have a terrible mindset, all this other stuff, that's like building your house on the sand. But vice versa, or excuse me, on the flip side, it's a better phrase to use. If you work out, if you have a good mindset, all this other stuff, you're building a house on the rock. You actually have a strong foundation in order to give your message to other people. And when a storm comes, and this goes to respect, because the person who built his house on the sand, he's not going to be respected by people. People are going to look at him like, oh, well, look at that Christian guy over there. He's a geek. Why should I listen to him? Fallacious, but that's how people think. And then you have the house on the rock. And that's a respectable man. You look at him and you can say, oh, okay, this guy handles business, right? And then people are going to be like, oh, well, I want to go to this guy. This guy's respectable. He's a Christian? Maybe there's something in Christianity. Dumb reasoning, right? But that's how people think. And now when a storm comes, which house do you think people should go to? The house with the rock or the house with the sand? That's the way you have to think about it, okay? Because doing the right thing is hard. You know what's easy? Playing video games, eating a bunch of crap, all this other stuff. That's the easy thing to do. That's the easy way out. The easy thing to do is say, well, I'm not going to make anyone mad. I'm not going to offend anyone. That's the easy thing to do. But guess what? Doing this easy thing has led to the degradation of society. We need people that are actually going to do stuff that are going to... we need people who are actually going to do the right thing. Even when it's hard. Even when you're threatened. Even when you're hated. Because again, tying it back to Jesus, what did Jesus do? Jesus was hated. Jesus was spat on. But he had a mission. Okay? He had a mission. And he knew his job was to fulfill it. The right thing to do was to fulfill his mission. And that's the same thing I'm positing to you all. No matter how bad things get, no matter how hard you think it is, no matter how hard it is to start getting working at, get started in the gym, get started eating good, all this other stuff, you have to do the right thing. Okay? And that goes to all the soapbox Christians. You're like, well, Jesus kept the peace all the time. And, you know, we shouldn't offend anyone, all this other stuff, okay? I just use Jesus as an example for you, specifically soapbox Christians. Everyone else, I think you understand very explicitly that Christians are called to be strong and stand for the right thing. Okay, and like I said, standing for the right thing, part of that is building yourself up in order to be this house on a strong rock foundation. Of course, that also ties into being educated, all this other stuff. So, check out my other videos. I'm very smart. Instagram, website, link in description. Discord, link in description. Join the movement. See you in the next upload.